Actually, I thought what we'd talk about today would be about how and when and why the dream starts. And we're all, and these are all guesses because we can't really explain this thing, but I'm going to come as close to it as I can. So when you first left your mother and you were absolutely helpless, totally out of control, which you thought was great. You might remember the little babies moving their arms and smiling a lot and everything. So they're completely out of control. They don't even know what control is. And they think it's wonderful, just leaving it all alone. But all good things come to an end. And at some point, usually somewhere around a year and a half, 2 years, maybe even later for some, but at some point, there comes a recognition. It's the first time that there is seeing, there has been awareing, there has been consciousness, but it hasn't been what I would call awakened consciousness or bright consciousness. There comes a day when all of a sudden you get a feeling or you see something or something happens. I can swear to God, it feels like I can remember when it happened to me, but I doubt the memory very much. But at some point, we come to recognize that there's a me here. We didn't know that. All we knew was the one thing of which we were a part, a very integral part. Being a part of one thing is not really being a part at all. It's being one thing. It's one thing, doesn't really have any parts. It just has one part, which is itself. But consciousness, on the other hand, feels more personal. It feels like consciousness is in my head. It feels like I have consciousness. And that if I get knocked out, then I lose my consciousness, because that's what I call it. I call it my consciousness. From the moment that there is the sense of a me, another thing is born instantly, which is other. Up until now, there's been no me, no other. We're just living without commentary. When the sense of other kicks in, as soon as it does, we now have duality. We have a sense of duality, which is that there's a sense that there's a me here, and there's a sense that there's a there there. And therefore we have duality. And what I notice about there is that it's just not right. It's just not what the doctor ordered, and I'm the doctor. It's a matter of fact, the funny thing about it is that it will never be right. It will, it can't get right, because I have a voice in my head, and this voice's activity seems to be its profession is to be at odds with whatever is. Whatever's being experienced at the moment is just not quite what I was looking for. It's just not quite right. It's not good enough. It's not big enough. It's not soft enough. It's not strong enough. It's just not enough. And I want this to be enough, because then I want to claim it. Because as soon as I can claim it, then I might be enough. Because now that, imagine, just without going into what is actually experienced, just imagine for a moment that your experience is that there's just this. No, you, just this. And you are it, right? I mean, you don't know you don't really have a experience like, wow, I'm it, but there's just this, there's just this one. And you know that you exist. There's a feeling of existence, but all of a sudden that jumps into a feeling of, instead of just the sense of being, there's the sense of Fred. And the moment there's the sense of Fred, Fred will complain. That's what Freds do. That's their job. They complain. They try their very best to throw cold water on whatever is going on. So this dichotomy, this is really the birth of duality. Now, notice that nothing's changed except for a point of view. We didn't say the world collapsed or the sky came down or we exploded or anything like that. The only thing that changed was a point of view. In the baby's body, there's just one thing, and it's just great. I don't know what the hell it is, but I don't care. And then for the next 50 years, the experience was that I had consciousness, and what was going on in what was going on in the world, which I thought was other than my consciousness, just sucked, right? And I had more grievous complaints than that, but that was the general run of it, is that it just wasn't worthwhile. It just sucked out loud. So with this recognition, this constant battering, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough because it's not good enough for me. That's the key. Is it might have been fine before, but now everything was fine. But now nothing's fine. Nothing's quite fine. Nothing's quite right for me. And this is the devil. Yeah. This is the issue. So it's not really the world that has changed. There's not been a a dualistic experience. There is, well, there has been, there is one now, which is me and other. But prior to that, there was no dualistic, there was really no non-dual. And this, from the baby's point of view, that was just this. It didn't have a name for it. I still don't. I call it this. It could see that things weren't right here. I can't see that, but I could for 50 years. For 50 years, I found problem after problem after problem. And I was miserable in my life. I mean, I had high times, very high times, and interspersed with my periods of misery and the anxiety and fear. And these parts began to play a bigger and bigger role the older I got, because the older I got, the more I could see that the world was not going to go my way. But as to get back to that initial experience of coming to the sense of being a Fred, with the sense of being a Fred comes comes judgment. And I am a terrible judge of things. I'm just everything's bad. So I never know that the problem is judgment. I don't know the problem is the mechanism itself. I think it's this. Nobody treats me right. Now, was I treated before? There was no before. So it's not like I have a history of being treated right or being satisfied. There was just no history of a Fred at all, because Fred hadn't yet been. The baby had been born, but Fred hadn't yet been invented. That was a slower thing. It took my parents and the family and friends and neighbors and everything. It took them 2 or 3 years to get that fully planted. Well, it wasn't even fully planted then, because you know that a 4-year-old has a completely different world of experience than we do. So that comes gradually. But this idea of there being a separate me, this thing grows, and it grows until it's a monster. In other words, there is just this unfillable hole, this raging fire that just wants more and more and more. There's no way out of that I know of, other than, temporary drugs, um, There will not discuss death because I'm not dead and I can't really be an authority on it. But the living experience, Buddha called it this, that said that life was dukkha, D-U-K-K-A, I think. I don't think there's an H, D-U-K-K-A. And what that is, what dukkha is it's the center part. It's like the axle of a wheel, but it's actually the hole that axle goes into in a wheel. And dukkha means that it's not centered, which means that every time that wagon rolls, there's going to be an experience like this. There's not going to be a continuous, peaceful experience because I'm just going to get jilted all over the place. If I'm lucky, I will notice my misery. And most people know they're miserable, but they don't know that it's their misery. In other words, it's something that they acquired and it's something that they can get rid of. That's something they can go ahead and lose. They can give back, so to speak. Because it's never this situation. This situation, I mean, there are many world situations that weren't here 72 years ago, but effectively, I mean, there's still governments and planet, and there's still wildlife and everything's maybe off kilter compared to 72 years ago, but it's not a different story. Yeah, well, it's not a different story at base. This is relativity, and there's still the experience of relativity. And there's still the relativity, and there's the experiencer of it. And as I say, find relativity to be unpleasant, to not be enough. It's not what it should be. And if you will look at your life, look at your own voice in your own head, and you will find that it's a running complaint with what is. This is the human condition. This is what Buddha noticed. So it may have been noticed before, but it wasn't announced. At least it didn't get around. Buddha noticed this, and he noticed that it was constant, and he noticed it was universal. And when he said life is dukkha, we translated that into life is suffering. And it's good enough. So this life is just, well, for some of us, it becomes undoable. We'll actually shoot the unit. Now, we think it's the world that's wrong. So some of us will think it's us, but we'd be okay if everybody understood us and stuff, usually. But sometimes we just shoot ourselves or we hang ourselves, we do whatever. And because we're not happy, we're not pleased. We can do it because we're just tremendously mentally ill, but I'm not sure all of us aren't. A little bit, we're all mentally ill if we're believing in relativity. We're just believing in something that isn't, because there's an experience of relativity. And for us, experience is the thing. Experience proves it. And that's what one of the big things about non-duality is, that you don't have to just believe what somebody says. It proves itself as you go along. Your parents and everybody they know, the people at schools, the people in authority, the people everywhere help nurture this dream of you. They help you build a self that just flat out isn't there. It wasn't there in the beginning, and it's not there now. There is a sense of self that was not at the beginning, but is here now. A sense of self. Like, it feels like there's a self. I could swear there's a self, but there's not. So we've made up a story, and we're actually suffering from our belief in that story, the story of separation. if we're very, very lucky, we can get miserable enough that we will take a turn somewhere along the line and end up in non-duality, into following non-duality. And even the psychological knowledge of, I mean, even if you're not taken by it, even if you don't believe it completely, just the knowledge that there's something better than this. The Not from the standpoint of I must have it, but it does get that way. The the idea that there's a way out of this. Most people are scared of it because the only way they know out of this is death, and everybody's scared of death. They think they were born and they're scared of death, but they were not born. The unit was born, and the unit will die, and everything in between is just imaginary character. There was an imaginary character named Fred Davis, and this imaginary character wanted to find out the truth of things because it was miserable and it reached the point where it needed something else. It needed an out. And I'd already done lots of drugs and sex and whatever, chased money and all these things. I was pretty much addicted to anything that felt good because it was better than this by itself. And I backed into non-duality. I got into Zen, which is non-duality, but you don't know it's non-duality. You don't really know what Zen is. You're just in it. There's really not a what is it answer. This is Zen. That's what there's the answer. What is Zen? This is Zen. And it is, but it doesn't make any sense for a long time. So if we're lucky, we back into non-duality, we fall into non-duality, we're drawn, we're pushed, whatever, we end up in this large group. There are surely millions of us in the world. And among the millions, there are some units that we could just say, it's not about the units, but we can't help but point at the unit and say, that's a lucky unit. It woke up. Well, what did it wake up from? It woke up from the dream. Which dream is that? Right? It woke up from the dream, and they tell us that there's just one thing going on. And they tell us. Can it get more dualistic than that? They tell us. And so we begin to develop as we grow older from childhood on. We just get more and more documentation, more evidence, more property, more friends, or more enemies too. And we're constantly building this imaginary character up. We're just making it into, we're making it what? We're making it into our own image, is what we think. Because I'm trying to make this thing out of who I want to be. But whoever I want to be, I don't really know. I just know what I don't want. That's the way, is I know what I don't want, which is this. Only problem being that search as I might, the last almost 50 years, there is not anything of this. If you can find it, produce it. And I'll never say that again. But as far as I know, there's just this. There is no edge to this. There's no boundary to this. And when you fully allow your mind to go out until it just can't stretch out anymore, and it's just out there in the universe, beyond matter, and just in the space, you can't find an end to it. So is it really true that you are in space? Are you the middle? Well, if we have a boundless thing can't have a middle. So you're not the middle of the universe, which is what everyone believes once there's a me. But this is the line that we swallow, hook, line, and sinker, and this is the line of misery. So there is this space, and we're scared of that space because it's black, the way we see it. There's nothing to see. There's nothing to hear. There's nothing to do. There's just this space. And this little man is imagining himself inside of that space. But that's exactly backwards. You are not inside of space. Space is inside of you. You are not an object. You've been looking for an object. Most of you have been looking for an object for a long time. I did. I was looking for other, and I knew enlightenment was not a thing, but in my mind, it became a thing because it became a thing I didn't have and a thing I desperately needed to have. The whole time, what am I doing? I'm building the character. Now he's the most miserable character in the world. Now he's the only one that can't get it. It seems like everybody's waking up and I can't. And that I never will. There's only one thing, just like the baby knew. We still don't have a name for it. We're not in this one thing. There's not this one thing is not inside of us, because with infinity, there's no inside, there's no outside, and thus there cannot be a center. When we shrink, our mind explodes with complaints, problems, distortions. But the only thing being is that the one that is suffering is the imaginary character that I just made up. And I probably made them up when I started making them up when I was 2 or 3 or 4 years old. And I carried it through for another 70 years. No, not good, but another 50 years. And then one day, while this unit was desperately trying to wake up, awakeness woke up, or awareness woke up, consciousness woke up through this unit. In other words, consciousness is everything everywhere. And we can, and just as a way to understand it, the language will never be right. But this unit cannot wake up. It's a walking cadaver. It has no life of its own. It is inhabited by life until it's not. And when it's not, the body dies. But the thing that was born, we don't, I mean, because it was the thing that was born, but the thing that was not born, the imaginary character collapses. But what about, is there anything at all? Well, we'll need to die to find out, but I have my own suspicions. When I have awakening sessions, I notice that I have people that they start out usually resisting me to some degree. Some of them resist me very heavily because what I'm trying to do is what I've just done with you, but I'm trying to do it in a different way. But I'm trying to tell them about the invention of the self. There's no little small self. The only self there is the one self. And I think, and self is just not a great word, but I don't think there are any. If 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 that's true, if there's just oneness and I defy you to find the other thing, then this has to be not you're in it, and it's you. The consciousness that you thought was in your head, no. The character that you built up since the first couple of years, That's what's in your head. And you've made it into something that suffers full time. Well, I mean, I say full time. They're certainly happy times, and they're good times. They're fun times and stuff like that, but they never last. And if you were to put them on a scale, they'll always be outweighed. It's just the way it works. When people come to wake up, what they expect me to do is to wake up that body. They expect me to wake up that mind. They want me to wake up that body mind. That they if Hank scheduled an awakening session, then Hank wants me to wake up Hank. But see, I can't see Hank. The only thing I can see from the moment the thing starts is me. And I understand why I'm here in this seat. I understand why I'm over there, but I have nothing to do with it. This body is where it is because it can't be anywhere else. Just that simple. It just cannot be anywhere else. And this is the way that life is. This is the way experience is. This is exactly like this. And this that when you hear, all you have to do is surrender to this. All you have to do is, well, you might hear surrender to God or whatever. But I don't think you're going to really place God here and everything else over here. I mean, usually God is, we will, there's God in me still. So there's still two of us. But I'm granting him vast nature. You argue until you can't, which means that you've gone through a series of questions that has tricked you into seeing the real you. And that's what it is. It's like a parlor trick. I mean, it sounds very mystical. I mean, I like to make it sound very mystical, to be very mystical. But really, it's a parlor trick with consciousness, which is you start consciousness over here and you bring it all the way 180 degrees to over here. So that consciousness starts out knowing it's consciousness, and at the 180-degree mark, consciousness sees, knows that it is the one thing. And people will say after that, I don't get it. Who is it that doesn't get it? Awakeness or awareness, I won't use my language, I'll try to use yours. Awareness, consciousness believes in that this is one little thing. And when you think about when you're at birth, you're everything, you're the whole damn universe. And then later you get taught that you're just this little scrawny thing. No wonder we have self-esteem issues. We've dropped 99.999, and it goes on forever, percent of the truth in favor of a lie, which we made up ourselves. It was encouraged. It was already ready right there. It was ready for us. But I cannot wake up something that doesn't exist. So I can't wake up Hank. The only thing I can do is I can take the awakeness that I am and that I see, the consciousness that sees itself. When there's an awakening session, I'm in both chairs. And I can talk to myself on a very intimate level. And most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, I can help myself, so to speak, over there, come to see that the thing that's looking through these eyes is the same thing that's looking through those. There's one consciousness. It's not in my head. It's there's just one consciousness, and everything else, I don't want to go too far. I just say everything else is secondary, at least. Everything else may just be made up, but at least we can see that what we're not, and this is all you can do. You cannot discover what you are directly. I mean, I can't tell you what you are because I don't even know, and it's prior to language. I can't tell you because I have to start somewhere. There's no place to start. You can't sweep it under the rug because there's no edge to pick up, right? It's just always there. It's always here. And this is it. And we think it looks some other way, but it doesn't. This is it. Oneness looks exactly like this. Here, now.